Welcome to the first episode of Backlog Quest, a series where I will attempt to go through my extensive backlog of video games. Both retro games that could have released over 30 or more years ago, or even recently released games I simply haven't gotten around to yet. To kick off 2025, I decided to play the Naughty Dog platforming classic, Jak and Daxter, the Precursor Legacy, for the very first time. Let's talk about it. Growing up, I never owned a PS2, but I always had friends who would rave about the Jak and Daxter series. I knew I would eventually get around to it, and I finally did. Being a Nintendo gamer for most of my life, I was pretty familiar with the 3D platforming genre, including the Super Mario series, Donkey Kong 64, and even the Crash Bandicoot series on the PS1. So it's safe to say it's one of my favorite gaming genres ever, and playing through Jak and Daxter further solidifies that. I mean, sure, it's a bit rough around the edges in terms of camera controls, but it's a significant improvement in comparison to something like Banjo-Kazooie, which I played to completion last year and still thoroughly enjoyed it, but that game was rage-inducing, to say the least. I still found myself struggling with some aspects of Jak and Daxter at certain points, but as a whole, it was definitely a cozier experience playing it from beginning to end. I'd say the aspect I enjoyed the most was the world exploration. The game felt particularly linear in each setting, but at the same time, I never felt tied down to a specific location, and I always felt I could go back to a certain point in the game and continue to explore, find all of the collectibles, and even some secrets if I tried hard enough. In comparison to something like the Mario series, where, outside of Super Mario Odyssey, you're literally warping to a specific stage and you can't seamlessly enter a different area until you complete it. Jak and Daxter, the Precursor Legacy, gave me a sense of freedom in a time where open world games weren't necessarily the next big thing just yet, and I have to credit Naughty Dog for being ahead of the game. I also enjoyed the music and the interesting aesthetic, especially the art style and the character designs. What helps the character designs are the bright and bubbly personalities of these characters that go along with them. Some are wacky, while others seem a bit normal, and I think it perfectly captures the essence of a society where there are different people with different personalities and behaviors. As for the gameplay, I truly enjoyed the platforming aspects and the vehicle portions, although some of the controls can be a bit tedious and unresponsive at times. But I was never not having fun. What I do wish was a bit more varied was the combat itself. I never found myself putting together combos or chaining together different attacks to take out certain enemies. Rather, everything was pretty basic, and I simply spammed the same attack over and over again. I'm not sure how the next games in the series evolve on this feature, but I hope I'm able to do a bit more. I also didn't care much for the story itself. Much of it felt a bit rushed and shoehorned in from time to time, but at the same time, I've never really played platformers for the story, so I don't think it's a fair criticism. Jak and Daxter, the Precursor Legacy, is definitely a 3D platformer that holds up relatively well for today's standards. It's a breezy 5 to 6 hour game you can sit back and enjoy, and I'm excited to play Jak 2 and beyond. This wraps up the first episode of Backlog Quest, and thanks for watching.